Hi guys. Hello. Hi. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna, instead of wearing headphones, I am going to do microphone. That should be much better in terms of sound quality. Hi, Diane. Good to see you. Hello. Hello, guys. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Praxis. Hi, Lithuanian Ball. Hi, Gorilla Joe. Okay, so we're going to be doing the news today from quite literally O'Hare International Airport because that's where I am. I got here way too early and now I have a boatload of time before my flight to do this. So, no, I don't need, right? Do I need? I don't think I need. Maybe I do need. 1 second. Hi, Jen. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Bob. Hi, Sky. Flying a plane. No, I mean, I'm not flying a plane. I am going in an airplane. I don't know how to fly a plane. I wish, but no, I'm not flying a plane. I'm just going on a plane. So that's yeah, definitely not flying one, but definitely going on a flight. You got mad pilot skills? No. Absolutely not. I mean, maybe one day, but not at all. It's required for spy credentials. Shh. James, why do you give me away? That's so not fair. Why are you telling everybody what was required for my freaking spy credentials? Jeez, man. Can't keep a secret, sir? Alrighty. So, okay, so, hi, Gap. Hi, everybody. You know a guy who became a pilot? Yeah, I mean, actually, remember Monks? His handle is Chicago Pilot. He was on live with us at some point. He was a guest. So he's in Chicago, and he's a pilot. And I actually wanted to meet up with him. He seems like a very good dude, but he's in Kyiv right now. So I couldn't hang out with him or meet up with him because he just simply wasn't here. What I did find out is that Yewleea is in Chicago today, and she's in the Ukrainian village, and that's funny because I passed by the Ukrainian village I passed by the Ukrainian village on my way to here to the airport. And I didn't know Mila was in Chicago, and she's here like with her mom and stuff. And it was very interesting because if I had known, I would have stopped by earlier and just said hi to her. Yeah, exactly. So that's it's a funny little situation. But it is what it is. But it is what it is. Okay. So close but yet so far. Yeah, exactly. Quite literally. Alrighty, guys. Let's deep dive into the news because, I'm at the airport. It's not like my house where I can normally do the news as long as I want to. I also do want to be able to go take my makeup off before the flight and stuff like that before the boarding starts because I really don't want to fly wearing my makeup. It's not cool. Okay, so also, yes, I'm going to be going back to Chicago to pick up my passport at some point, hopefully soon. And I'm excited because I want to stay for like a week and explore a little more. Stay and phone online. Comp toy and phone online, huh? Comp toy? What's comp toy? Does airplane air mix with makeup poorly? No, it's just kind of like I feel like going on the airplane with makeup is about the same as sleeping in makeup, and none of those things are good for your skin. I just feel like I don't know. Yeah, I don't like I already feel like my skin is all like after the airplane, so it's like I don't need extra stuff to make it Thank you for following in Twitch, Cow2455. Um, so yeah, there is that. Oh, computer, toy. I game too much. Oh, gotcha. Gotcha. Cool. Alrighty, so, okay. So I'm super excited to come back to Chicago and explore a little bit. I really hope that my passport is here before the winter because I would rather literally sit outside in the winter on my fire escape in New York for an hour than spend a day in Chicago in the winter because it is so cold and so gross. I absolutely despise the city in the winter. I've been here in the winter before in January and I don't want to come back. It's awful. It is so goddamn awful. It's not even funny. I don't even know. It's so bad. I don't ever want to be in Chicago in the winter ever again. I'd much rather my passport be ready in like October, November, so I could just come here during normal weather because it's a no, 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 thank you, no, no, yeah, no, no, yeah. But okay, so U.S. trade gives Russia over $1 billion a month despite sanctions. The United States imposed an embargo on the import of vodka, diamonds, oil, and some other goods, but hundreds more goods continue to regularly enter American ports. Over the past 6 months, Russia has shipped more than 3,600 shipments of wood, metal, rubber, and other goods to the United States, according to AP. This is a significant decrease from the same period in 2021, when there were about 6,000 deliveries. 46,250 Russians will never take part in any subsequent special operation. Total combat losses of the enemy on the morning of August 26th. Armed forces of Ukraine destroyed 2 ammunition depots, 1 base, and 2 command posts on Russian invaders in a day. In one single day. Operational Command South reported that our aviation struck at the invaders in Arkhangelsk and Lukhanovka, as well as enemy air defense systems in Kherson and Novovoskresensky. There were also rocket artillery strikes against the enemy in Snehirevka, Novovoskresensky, and Chkalovo. The losses of the invader in the south of the country are as follows: 20 Russians, 2 vehicles, a communication center of the 98th Parachute Regiment in Duchane, and another ammunition depot in Novoskresensky. This is how 16 million and the pride of Russia, the K-52 Alligator helicopter, are burning. AFU shot down this helicopter somewhere over Ukrainian fields on Independence Day. Take a look at what that looks like. Beautiful. Burn bright. Putin unlikely to announce general mobilization anytime soon, according to the Institute for the Study of War. Hi, Mashbach. Also, the American Institute for the Study of War notes that Russian troops are responsible for kinetic attacks on and around Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. In addition, Russian forces carried out limited ground attacks northwest and northeast of Slavyansk, northeast and south of Bakhmut, and northwest of Donetsk in the west of Kharkiv region in the northwest of Kherson region. Russian troops continued their attempts to storm Bakhmut unsuccessfully. It is noted that the enemy continues to concentrate efforts on the Bakhmut and Avdiivka directions. In the Bakhmut direction near Soledar, Bakhmut, and Kodema, the enemy fought an offensive battle but had no success. It is also known that the invaders continue shelling settlements along the entire front line. How much did you miss? About 3 updates. Invaders continue shelling front line and border regions of Ukraine. In Dnipropetrovsk, the Nikopol, Marhanets, Krasnogorivka, Sinelnikov, and Kryvyi Rih regions were shelled. Houses, schools, sanatoriums, and enterprises were destroyed. A hangar with equipment was on fire. Thank you, James. Mykolaiv, there was an explosion at night. Details are still unknown. Donetsk region, Seversk, Soledar, Svetlodar, Konstantinivka communities, and Kramatorsk district were shelled. Houses, schools, and colleges were destroyed. Kharkiv, Chuguyev, and Darhachi were shelled. A 50-year-old woman died and a 59-year-old man was injured. Damaged houses, cars, industrial facilities. Sumy region, over the past day from its territory, the Russian Federation fired more than 100 ammunition into the region and several border communities, damaged houses and outbuildings. Thank you, Rue. Hi, Rue. Putin still wants to take over most of Ukraine, according to Pentagon. U.S. Deputy Secretary of Defense for Political Affairs Colin Kahl believes that the president of the Russian Federation wants to continue to seize our country and change power in Kyiv. Right now, Putin's strategy is to wait out the Ukrainians. That is, step up the offensive when the people are exhausted from the war, Kahl said. And he added that Putin is also waiting for Europe to get tired of high energy prices. All I want to say to him is this. I think he's so delusional at this point because he thinks that Europe is going to get tired of high energy prices. Meanwhile, absolutely everyone in this world understands and sees what he is doing, and it's not going to fly anymore. Someone with a Russian-sounding name on Twitch is saying Highsies. So I am just kind of I'm not going to say anything until you say something that might identify you as a Russian-speaking Ukrainian, and if you don't, then you're just going to get booted. So, if you're Russian, I'm sorry. I don't have anything against you personally until you say something bad. But also, I just don't trust Russians. I'm sorry. Intelligence update from British intelligence as of August 26, 2022. On 24th of August 2022, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu told the Shanghai Cooperation Organization that Russia was deliberately slowing the pace of its military campaign in Ukraine, driven by the need to reduce civilian casualties. Driven by the need to reduce civilian casualties? When did the Russians care about civilian casualties? When did the Russians care about civilian casualties? I'm sorry, you've killed thousands of people by missile strikes, and now you're slowing down the offensive to avoid civilian casualties? Are you kidding me? No, you're slowing it down because you have nothing to offend with anymore. This is almost certainly deliberate misinformation. Russia's offensive has stalled because of poor Russian military performance and fierce Ukrainian resistance. You have a good day as well. Bye. Thank you for stopping by. This is almost certainly deliberate misinformation. Russia's offensive has stalled because of poor Russian military performance and fierce Ukrainian resistance. Under Shoigu's orders, the forces operating in Ukraine have repeatedly missed planned operational timelines. It is highly likely that Shoigu and President Putin have fired at least 6 generals for not advancing quickly enough. On the day Shoigu was speaking, a Russian SS-26 Iskander short-range ballistic missile struck a train in the town of Chaplina, reportedly killing at least 2 children. This highlights Russia's willingness to cause collateral damage when it perceives there is military advantage in launching missile or artillery strikes. Exactly. They're not slowing down their offensive because of because of any, need to not to lower civilian casualties is because they can't. Like their offensive is just not working. IAEA visit Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant next week. Advisor to Energy Minister Olena Zarkal. A visit of the IAEA mission is scheduled for the next week, and now all logistics routes are being decided how they will get there. Despite the fact that the Russians agreed that the mission would travel through the territory of Ukraine, they're now artificially creating all the conditions for the mission not to reach the object given the situation around it, Zarkal said on radio NV. Bloomberg writes that the IAEA mission will visit the Zaporizhzhia NPP by September 5th. Meanwhile, at Zaporizhzhia NPP, as of 9 a.m. on August 26th, all power units were disconnected from the power grid. The plant's own needs for power supply are now provided through a repaired line from the Ukrainian power system. Hi, Lauren. Hi, guys on TikTok. Sorry if I don't see your comments. It's just you're quite far. And I'm at the airport, and I'm trying to see... Oh, hi, Amanda. Hi, Paul. Hi, Amanda. Hi, Paul. Hi, Jonathan. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Alexei. Hi, Marie. Hi, Zelensky updates. Hi, everyone. Sorry. It's hard for me to see sometimes. Thank you so much, Amanda. Okay. Armed forces of Ukraine destroyed the base of the invaders in the temporarily occupied Kadiyevka Stakhanov of the Luhansk region. The base was set up at the Donbass Hotel, said Serhiy Haidai, head of the Luhansk RMA. So, the armed forces of Ukraine destroyed their base. Hi, Lauren. Oh. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for sharing the live, Marie. Really appreciate you guys. The U.S. urges Russia to stop filtering and deporting Ukrainians. A Yale humanities lab report documents that there are 21 filtration-related facilities in the Donetsk region. The U.S. State Department noted that this is a violation of human rights and called on Russia to immediately stop such actions. Yeah, because calling on them is going to result in anything. It's so funny to me when they're like, oh my gosh, it's horrifying. Russia, stop it. Stop doing atrocities to civilians. They put them in filtration camps? Atrocious. We can't believe it. What do you mean? They've shelled most of our country for literally no reason. What do you mean it's atrocious and you can't believe it? Do something. In addition, the Conflict Observatory also records cases of damage to medical and educational institutions in the Luhansk region occupied by Russian troops. The U.S. will provide the institution with an additional $9 million as part of the European Initiative for Democratic Resilience. Belarusian Su-24 aircraft converted to carry nuclear weapons, according to Lukashenko. Putin is preparing for a protracted war in Ukraine. Therefore, he issued a decree to expand the Russian army. The material says that over the past 5 years, this is the first such decree of the president of the Russian Federation. At the same time, Russian propagandists and officials practically do not talk about it. Journalists note Putin issued the decree at a time when he's more than ever far from his goal of capturing all or most of Ukraine. This increasing the size of the army is not the kind of move you make when you expect your war to end quickly, emphasized RAND Corporation policy researcher Dara Massatot, adding that this is what you do when you make some kind of planned, protracted conflict. According to the New York Times, there is growing evidence that the war in Ukraine could drag on until next winter and even longer. Well, that's horrible news. Ukraine is launching a register of damaged and destroyed property, which will receive all information from DIA app and will be verified. SBU, Security Service of Ukraine, was able to prove the crimes of Ramzan was able to prove the crimes of Ramzan Kadyrov and his two closest henchmen in Ukraine. It is documented that in February-March 2022, Kadyrov personally led the development and planning of individual military operations, gave orders, heard reports, and reports from the heads of military units operating in Ukraine. On the orders of his henchmen, people were taken prisoner, including bedridden patients of medical institutions and children. Residential buildings were mined. Also, they did not disdain looting. All three were declared suspected of war crimes against Ukraine. Baykar will not sell Bayraktar to Russia for any money. CEO Haluk Bayraktar for BBC. Russia withdraws its fighter jets from Crimea after a series of explosions on the peninsula, according to Business Insider. 6 Su-35S fighters and 4 MiG-31BM fighters were withdrawn from Crimea. Russians brought 10 chemical laboratories to Melitopol, Mayor Ivan Fedorov. This was done to save their officers and generals if radiation emissions occur at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. They are located on the territory of one of the hospitals in Melitopol. A map of the location of the so-called election commissions and preparations for holding pseudo-referendum was published. So Kherson, Novokakhovka, Mikhailivka, and Energodar. That's where these places were. But they got destroyed by the AFU. So they're not there anymore, which is kind of fun. Europe faces worst drought in 500 years. Oh my god. As Reuters writes, referring to the August report of the European Observatory, EDO, as a result of dry weather, inland shipping, electricity production, and crop yields are reduced. 47% of Europe is under warning conditions with a clear deficit of soil moisture. This summer, much of Europe has experienced extreme temperatures that have exacerbated droughts, sparked wildfires, and governments in some countries have issued heat warnings and called for more action to combat climate change. Hi! Hi there. Due to drought in European countries, spring crops have suffered. Corn yields in 2022 will be 16% below the average of the previous years, while soybean and sunflower yields will fall by 15% and 12% respectively. Kyiv felt the climate change as well, as the air temperature did not drop below 30 degrees throughout the week. In the first days of September, a sharp drop in temperature to 20 plus degrees is expected. Ukrainian units inflict losses on the invaders in close combat. The summary of the General Staff on the evening of August 26th. Collaborators in Mariupol threaten with deprivation of parental rights if the child is not sent to full-time education in an occupation school. Such messages were sent to parents in school chats. This testifies to the resistance of Mariupol families who do not want to send their children to schools where they will be taught to hate Ukraine. The Ukrainian language forced them to glorify the occupiers and love the Russian world, the Mariupol City Council reports. Therefore, the occupiers resort to intimidation. First, they threaten to send warnings, then a fine of 40,000 rubles, and then they will be deprived of parental rights. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Like, you're gonna deprive them of parental rights because they don't want, like, first of all, a parent can decide whether they want to put their kid in school at all. Faced with resistance, Russia threatens parents in the Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions with sending children to orphanages if they do not sign them up to Russian-seized schools. Moscow is using education as a tool of oppression. We call on UNESCO to urgently react to this crime. That's insane. Party members of German Chancellor Scholz opposed the supply of weapons to Ukraine. In addition, representatives of the left wing of the Social Democratic Party of Germany called for urgent start to negotiations with the Russian Federation. Mikhailo Podolyak reacted to this. Once again on the points, the Russian army brings only death, destruction, and torture. Western weapons bring peace by helping us protect our children. I invite everyone who calls on Germany to stop helping Ukraine on an excursion to Bucha. We will discuss your arguments with the families of tortured Ukrainians, he said. Volodymyr Zelensky's evening address. The grain export initiative has been operating for almost a month, and during this time, the first 1,000,000 tons of foodstuffs since February 24th were exported from our 3 seaports in Chornomorsk, Odessa, and Pivdenny. Ukrainian grain and the very fact that our supplies to the world food market has worked to make it possible to prevent chaos on the market, reduce the severity of the food crisis, and prevent catastrophic shortages. Ukraine was, is, and will be among the guarantors of global food security. This export not only supports the international subject status of Ukraine, but also provides jobs for our citizens. Hundreds of thousands of jobs, provides income for Ukrainian companies and the state budget, and, very importantly, provides funds for planting next year. Lithuania will purchase Polish kamikaze drones for the armed forces of Ukraine. The money was raised as part of the Legion Boom initiative. The Lithuanian Defense Ministry has already held talks with the manufacturer, the Polish company WB Group. In addition to 37 drones, Lithuania will also buy 2 sets with all the necessary accessories. Norway introduces additional sanctions against Russia. Headline Slava. Norway has introduced a new set of sanctions against President Putin and the Russian regime. The package of sanctions adopted by the EU on 21st of July 2022 has been incorporated into Norwegian law and enters into force in Norway today. 56 MEPs from different countries signed a letter calling on them to stop issuing tourist visas to Russian citizens. While Ukrainian citizens suffer from the cruelty of Russian military aggression, Russians should not be allowed into the EU, the text of the document says. The letter is addressed to the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the European Council, Charles Michel, and the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, presiding over the EU, Petr Fiala. The initiator of the letter is a Lithuanian MEP from the liberal faction Renew Europe, Petras Auštrevičius. Serbian army is put on high alert. Sirens sound at the border. Meanwhile, U.S. Special Representative for the Western Balkans, Gabriel Escobar, said that it's time to forget that Kosovo is Serbia and move on to Kosovo is Europe. The parties will return to the conflict in 5 days. Belgium allocates $8 million for non-military support of the armed forces of Ukraine, in particular a comprehensive non-lethal aid package. It includes first aid equipment and winter clothing, the press service of the Belgian Foreign Ministry said. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation boasted of destroying units of the armed forces of Ukraine. From flamethrowers, only the occupiers are fighting with sunflowers. So this is a video that the Russian forces put out to the internet, basically saying that they're blowing up Ukrainians from the flamethrowers, but they're literally, this is like dropping in an empty field just for video effects. This is like a legitimate waste of weapons, and they are destroying sunflower fields. So, literally idiots. Judging by the metadata hidden characteristics of the video, it was recorded on July 31st. The project in the video editing program was called Classes 1D SHBV2, which can be deciphered as classes of the 1st Air Assault Battalion or Brigade. There are no signs of the AFU on the video. One shell hit sunflowers, the other just hits the field. The video is accompanied by a commentary by a Russian military man with his face covered, but the authors failed to keep his anonymity. The file with the commentary is called Commander of a Flamethrower Platoon of the Guard Senior Lieutenant Ivanov Alexander. So literally, they did not. They're so stupid. They give out the names of these people easily. Yeah, sure. Donetsk will be free from Russia, but dude. Negotiations with Russia, a death sentence for Ukraine. Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the presidential office, stated that this in an interview with The Hill. President Zelensky is clearly against negotiations, and Ukrainian society is adamant because we're fully aware of the risks. Podolak expressed the opinion that Russia would take advantage of any pause to recuperate and launch an even greater offensive. Russia is unlikely to be able to hold referendums on September 11th due to friction in the occupation administrations and guerrilla attacks, according to the Institute for the Study of War. All the data collected suggests that the Russian authorities are seeking to create a veneer of local support and participation ahead of the referendums to present them as widely supported initiatives, but are facing persistent setbacks that are delaying annexation attempts. Okay. Main conclusions. The International Atomic Energy Agency said that elements of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant resumed connection to Ukraine's power grid on August 26th. Russian troops made limited ground attacks southwest of Izum, northeast and south of Bakhmut, and to the northwestern outskirts of Donetsk city. Ukrainian forces continued to shell Russian ground communication lines and military infrastructure in the Kherson region, supporting operations on the western bank of Dnipro. Russian strike on Chaplina station has all the signs of a war crime. An Associated Press journalist who visited Chaplina said there was no identification that Ukrainian servicemen were among the casualties. However, there are children among the dead. More than 1 million tons of agricultural products have already been exported from Ukrainian ports along the grain corridor. Intelligence update as of August 27th of British intelligence. Over the last 5 days, there has probably been an increase in the intensity of Russian assaults along the Donetsk sector of the Donbass. North of Donetsk city, there has been intense fighting near the towns of Siversk and Bakhmut. Pro-Russian separatist militia have probably made some progress towards the center of the village of Bisky near Donetsk airport. However, overall, Russian forces have secured few territorial gains. There is a realistic possibility that Russia has increased its efforts in the Donbass in an attempt to draw in or fix additional Ukrainian units amid speculation that Ukraine is planning a major counter-offensive. Russia continues to transfer military equipment to the temporarily occupied Crimea. The train was noticed at the Taman railway station, which is located at the entrance to the Kerch Bridge from Russia. The authorities of the peninsula ordered to classify the facts of explosions at military facilities, reports the GUR of Ukraine. Yeah, of course, it's classified info because, people are smoking not carefully. The decisive period in the war in Ukraine will be fall. If we talk about natural and climatic conditions, it will be September, October. There will be bad weather, November, winter, but the fighting will continue, Vadim Skibitsky, spokesman for the main intelligence directorate of the Defense Ministry, said. The representative of the GUR believes that in any case, the winter period will also be difficult because there will be harassing hostilities in order to keep the armed forces of Ukraine on their toes. And the second is the factor of energy resources, which will be unambiguously used by Russia to destabilize our internal situation. Russia removes air defense systems from Syria. I feel like they just need them, that's why. UK is donating undersea mine hunter drones to help Ukraine clear coastlines in the amount of 6 of them. By the end of this year, Ukraine may push back the Russian armed forces to positions that they were at until February 24th. This was stated by the former commander of U.S. forces in Europe, Ben Hodges, in an interview with DW. We have provided something, but it is not enough for a decisive effect. That is why the front line has not changed for about a month now, the general believes. The Russians have already reached the climax of the offensive and are no longer able to advance. Moreover, they're unable to even protect their rear. The duration of the war will depend on whether we do everything we promised, whether we deliver all the weapons we promised, he stressed. Exactly. That's what I've been saying this whole time, that it depends on all of the weapons we receive. Eastern human rights group, the occupiers created a torture prison at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The torture chamber in the ground bunkers of the ZNPP is controlled by the Wagner group, controlled by Yevgeny Prigozhin, who is close to Putin. Members of PMC Wagner call this place Energetic. The prison also functions as a filtration camp. The invaders are detaining the pro-Ukrainian population. The FSB allows the invaders any form of torture. The only condition to leave the prison is a ransom, but this condition does not apply to pro-Ukrainian activists and volunteers. Human rights activists appeal to the IAEA with a request to conduct monitoring in order to stop torture and ill treatment of prisoners of Energetic prison. That's insane. Russia has less than half of the missiles it had before the start of the war with Ukraine. In the Russian Federation, covert mobilization has reached the Moscow and Leningrad regions. According to intelligence, earlier men were actively taken to the war from backward regions, Buryatia, Tuva, and the republics of Caucasus. But the turn has come to the central regions. Men of the draft age are offered to sign a volunteer contract for a period of 3 to 12 months. Those who wish to do so are promised a salary of up to 240,000 rubles, and for the duration of training, 30 to 45,000 rubles. Recruiters say that the medical commission is held conditionally. In fact, they take everyone who wants to go, even with a category B in a military ID. Joseph Borrell on Twitter. Serbia and Kosovo have reached agreements, said the head of the European diplomacy. As part of the EU-supported dialogue, Serbia agreed to cancel entry-exit documents for Kosovo ID card holders, and Kosovo agreed not to introduce them for Serbian ID card holders. This is a European decision. We congratulate both leaders on this decision and their leadership, he said. Slovakia signs agreement with Poland and Czech Republic to patrol its skies, according to Reuters. This is due to the fact that Bratislava is decommissioning its Soviet-made MiG-29s, potentially freeing up old aircraft for shipment to Ukraine. In Kherson, near the 90th penal colony, ammunition detonates and equipment of Russians is on fire, local media report. This is an industrial zone nearby where enemy ammunition was likely located. In the colony itself, Russians usually force prisoners to repair their equipment. Another gesture of goodwill from Russians. This time, the Russians, out of kindness, allowed the armed forces of Ukraine to steal the Mavic quadrocopter from them. The armed forces of Ukraine intercepted the drone of the propagandist Slavkov and the Russian invaders, among whom was the neo-Nazi Milchakov. The video in which the Russians sadly watched the copter take off is a separate pleasure.
For information or assistance, please go to airport information desks located around the terminals. Information desks are located through security in each terminal and post-security in terminals 1, 2, and 3.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, the drone literally flew away from them. In Russia, they decided to increase the number of troops in Ukraine by another 90,000 people. Vadim Skibitsky, representative of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense, on the air of the telethon. According to him, at the moment, about 160,000 military men are employed in Ukraine, not counting the National Guard. Now the Russian Federation is increasing mobilization reserves using a set of so-called volunteer and reserve battalions. Volunteer. Yeah, people they literally kidnap. Or people that they like force into it, but oh well, not the Russians wouldn't do it for money anyway. Okay. Alrighty, guys, I gotta go because I see that my flight starts boarding in like 2 minutes. I need to run to the bathroom. I would like to do that, so I don't have to do that on the airplane. That's also all news that I had for today, which is perfect timing because that means that we did everything in a super timely manner. And look at that. That was perfect. So I will be seeing you later today because I'm going to be staying out waiting for Cindy to come back home, basically. Maybe Cindy. So I will see you later. Bye, guys. Oh. Bye, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Donovan. Thank you, Truthful. Bye, everyone on Twitch and YouTube. Bye, Gap. I'm going to turn off YouTube first because I gotta pack my